What's up, guys? This is D Tacos with the Daily Taco. Not daily, sorry. It's a news and information program brought to you by Dominion Voting Systems. Today we got a really cool one. It's with a former CIA operative, CIA officer. His name is HK Roy. Was in the CIA for about 13 years. After that, he did some of his own private intelligence work, and he wrote a book. The book is called American Spy. Wry Reflections on My Life in the CIA. It's actually a really good book. I've read it myself. Actually, full disclosure, I didn't read it. I heard it. I listened to it on tape. I know I'm a fucking dirtbag. It's fine. I get it. But check it out. It's pretty good. I'm going to link Amazon below if you're watching on YouTube. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe. If you're listening to it on audio on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of the other platforms, don't forget to like it there. Give it 5 stars. Do what you can. Best way to do it, don't think I forgot, is to share it. Okay? You like something, you want to support somebody, you share it. That's how it goes, baby. And what else? We got a fun NHL podcast called Artemi's Breadbasket coming out tomorrow. We got a Fat Guy Sports Time hopefully coming out tomorrow or the next couple days. And yeah, check it out. Enjoy. And enjoy HK Roy. Thanks so much. Your internet's good. Are you in the States?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Central Coast of California.
Yeah, you're lucky. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. There's fucking 2 feet of snow on the outside. Oh,
My daughters went to NYU, so I went to Brooklyn quite a lot.
yeah. So you know what it's like. When we get snow maybe twice a year this bad,
Yeah,
but when it's this bad, it's like it takes me out of it. I'm like totally a miserable piece of shit when it snows like this.
I lived in DC, and we didn't get a lot of snow there either. But when it did, it just screwed everything up.
Oh my God. It's been so brutal the last couple days. It seriously sucks, man. It's like worse than the pandemic. Yeah, you're good. You sound awesome.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah. You're good to go.
All right. Great.
All right. I mean, like I found you out, but from Jack Murphy from his
Right.
podcast, The Team House. I mean, Jack is a good egg, man. Like I can't talk
Yeah.
better about the guy. He's such a great guy. Like he gave me an interview too. Like just an awesome dude. And that's how I came across you. And like I think we connected back when the first impeachment was going on.
Is that right?
I think so, because I think I tweeted at you during the first impeachment, right after you did Jack's show and Dave's show. And then I got your book, which is really awesome. I'm gonna plug it. It's called what's it called? American Spy. And there's like what's the rest of it?
The rest of it's Wry Reflections on My Life in the CIA.
Yeah, pretty great book. Some crazy stories too.
Thanks.
First thing I know the difference, but I want like people who listen to know the difference. A CIA agent isn't somebody who's an American who works for the CIA, correct? That's like an agent that like an indigenous person from that country you're spying on, working for you.
Right. So those of us who were staff officers, the title officially is case officer or operations officer. We don't use the term CIA agent the way you do have FBI agents, for example.
Right.
So an agent in our terminology is the foreign national who we recruit to spy for us in foreign lands. That's the actual agent.
Right. And you were in the CIA until when?
I was in for 13 years exactly as a staff officer until October of '96, and then I continued to support the mission privately from the outside until about the end of until the troops left Iraq, basically, because I've been in business in Iraq since then. And as I explained in my book, we had some. I can't get into too much detail about it, but continued to support the counterterrorism mission in Iraq using my company.
So like my guesstimate on when you say it like that means like you started your own private.
Right. Yeah, and I really did start my own private company. I mean, I resigned from the CIA for a variety of reasons, mainly family related. But then I started up my own business initially as a kind of like continuing to work as a case officer, but for corporate clients instead of government clients in Eastern and Central Europe, the former Soviet Union. running assets, collecting intelligence, all privately. And
Okay.
I would help out the U.S. government then as well. And in the book, I talk about, for example, how I reported on just as the second Bush administration was getting ready to invade Iraq. One of the theories for invasion was, well, Saddam's intelligence service, the Iraqi intelligence service, met with Al Qaeda in Prague, and this would demonstrate a nexus between Saddam's regime and Al Qaeda, something which nobody had ever heard of existing before. And I was working a lot in Prague in those days and had basically unilateral penetrations of the Czech intelligence service. And obviously, the CIA has its own contacts with the Czech intelligence service as well. But it was an important matter, something that going to war might hinge on this.
Yeah.
And so they tasked me to look into it, and I reported conclusively, without a doubt, that there was no such meeting between Saddam's intelligence service and Al Qaeda in Prague. It never happened.
Right.
And so that was the type of thing I could continue to do from the outside after I left.
And I'm sure it paid better, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, like the thing with specific, I would definitely wanted to talk to you about Iraq 2003 and like what led up to that. And just like the craziness, like you see more and more now, hindsight, obviously, like, people inside the room speaking out, yourself included, like how the intelligence was so shoddy. And like, they just wanted to like make the intelligence fit their narrative so much so we can go to war against Iraq.
Right.
That it just didn't make sense. I know Saddam's a shitbag. He was a shitbag human being. I'm not going to be the first. I'm not going to say he wasn't, but was it worth the blood and gold that we gave up to do that, to overthrow him and leave the vacuum that is now, that's ISIS and the sectarian government and all that?
Right. I mean, it was obvious that the Bush administration, Cheney, Rumsfeld, the whole group, they were going to invade Iraq no matter what. And I was outside the CIA, but I had heard that basically early on. They talked about invading Iraq either on 9/11 or 9/12. When obviously why would you talk about Iraq? It was pretty obvious right then. It was Al Qaeda out of Afghanistan, and they then began to pressure the intelligence community to come up with, intelligence which would justify an invasion, and including relying on sources who the CIA told them these are fabricators. Don't base it on the intelligence from this guy, but. And Dick Cheney would go to CIA headquarters and stand over the back of young analysts to pressure them to say things. And, the bottom line was, from my perspective, and I wasn't on the inside, and I know, there were some indications that maybe he had weapons of mass destruction, and he obviously had tried to do that in the past. But for me, the bottom line question is, does Iraq pose a threat to America's national security? And at that time, I mean, to me, it was pretty obvious that the answer is no. There was no evidence that Al Qaeda had any links to Iraq. On the contrary, and we've seen what happened since then. After we invaded, there became, Al Qaeda in Iraq was created. It was never there before, but
Right.
Because the invasion, it was created, and that morphed into ISIS. And
Yeah, I mean, like the invasion of Iraq. I mean, it was bungled. Like militarily, sure, it was a victory and stuff. Like we kicked their asses and all that. But, once we got in there, disbanding the Ba'ath Party and the army, like it was just folly after folly after folly. Like they didn't even protect like the museums and stuff, like from the looter. I remember like so clearly the looters. Like, and I was 18. No, 2003, I was 17. And I remember it so clear, like them running outside of a museum with like, old school ancient pottery and stuff like that.
No, I know, but disbanding the Iraqi military was a huge mistake. And again, I know for a fact the CIA told Bremer, "Don't do that." And I was there in May of 2003, and this is in my book. I mean, I met with a Sunni tribal elder chief from Ramadi. This was this was in May. The invasion was in April, and this was in May. and this was all before the insurgency. And he said, "Thank you very much for getting rid of Saddam. He was a bad guy, but you have just opened the door to Iran, number one, which which even Saddam was standing up to Iran, which like nobody else did. So he was our guy in that sense.
Right.
But this Sunni tribal elder said, look, the troops need to get out now. This is our country, and you need to get. He basically warned me. He said he assumed I was still working for the government, which I was not, but I could relay the message, which was, the troops need to get out, or essentially we will start attacking them, and that's exactly what happened.
Iraq is majority Sunni or majority Shia?
It's majority Shiite, but Saddam was a Sunni, and so he had this minority control over the majority. And it was never, I mean, he was a brutal dictator, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a threat to the United States as far as I'm concerned. And it was a very, it was not a religious type dictatorship. Saddam found religion towards the end, as
everyone does. Yeah.
But we opened the door to Iran and the Shiite majority, and for better or for worse,
Right.
I don't know if that was our role, but that's what we did.
I mean, again, Saddam is definitely a bad guy, and what he did to the Kurds, there's no clear, pristine answer here, right? There's no clear right or wrong. But like you said with Iran specifically, like Iran, he held them in check for the most part, and now it's become a vacuum there, power vacuum. And Quds Force and the Iranian intelligence, they're all over Iraq, they're all over everywhere. Like they're basically the biggest sponsor of terrorism, or just jihadist, whatever you want to call it, in the region.
Yeah, they have been our enemy, and that's another theme of my book, my long-standing relationship with the Iranian intelligence service.
Sure.
And they have been around, since the revolution. They sponsored, Hezbollah, which was behind these attacks in Beirut against the U.S. Embassy and against the U.S. Marines in the early 80s. They kidnapped and tortured to death one of my colleagues, who I didn't know personally, but who was the chief in Beirut, William Buckley. Iran was behind that. And so, yeah, they've done all kinds of nasty things over the years. And now, of course, they're developing nuclear weapons.
Back then, in 1987, when that happened in Beirut from Hezbollah, why didn't we answer the way we answer now? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was earlier than 87. I think it was 83 or so.
Okay.
And there were a couple of attacks. There was the U.S. Embassy, then there was an attack on the embassy annex, and then there was an attack on the Marine barracks.
The Marine barracks killed how many Marines?
I don't remember. I think in
a couple hundred.
Yeah, I think so. And they wiped out the CIA station as well in the embassy. And so I don't know that we knew at that moment that it was Iran. In fact, I had just joined the CIA in October of 83. And so I was just getting into that world. So, how we respond sort of depends on who the president is, I guess, at any given time.
I mean, it was good old Ronald, but I mean, I guess he had his own stuff going on with Iran-Contra, and, he had other ops going on, really. And, we still had the big bad Soviet Union to deal with. But I mean, still, that's they killed 200. If that happened today, we're sending troops in. We're going balls to the wall.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that we knew exactly who was behind it at that point in time. Over time, it developed that it was Hezbollah, or the group that became Hezbollah, and they were supported by Iran at the time. So
I read an interesting article about Hezbollah. They're the biggest, one of the biggest drug cartels in the world. They do. Yeah, it's so interesting to see. They're under the guise of being super religious and stuff, and
yeah.
You wouldn't think they'd be trafficking humans, or sending over whatever it is, kilos of coke or whatever, or heroin or whatever, to basically fund their whole operation, or help fund their operation.
Yeah, I mean, hypocrisy is rampant with these groups, and Al Qaeda as well. The total hypocrites, but that's kind of par for the course.
Sure. Yeah. Talk about the Quds Force. I mean, you've had your run-ins with them.
Yeah.
Like that story. I mean, I mean, it's crazy. You go ahead. I mean,
Yeah, well, like I said in the book, I my first exposure to the Iranians was when I was in college, and the Iranian Revolution took place, and they kidnapped, the hostages from the American embassy, including a guy from Arizona, which is where I'm from originally. He was a Marine security guard there, and so that really sort of, made it personal for me. And then when I was in D.C. for law school, I was there for Reagan's inauguration. I got to see that parade down Pennsylvania Avenue. And then 1 week later, the American hostages were back in DC, and they had a hostage parade down Pennsylvania Avenue. They were in or metro buses. And it was really awesome. And, the country was really relieved at the time to have them back. And I remember thinking at the time, I just wish I could do something against this Iranian regime. Anyway, then you fast forward to 1995, which is when that story, chapter 1 of my book, takes place. And the war had been raging in Bosnia for about 3 years. The Serbs were slaughtering the Bosnian Muslims. America's policy flip-flopped, and both with Bush and Clinton, they both made really stupid mistakes, which I point out in the book. And the bottom line was the Bosnian Muslims were getting slaughtered. We did nothing for 3 years other than imposing an arms embargo, which only hurt the victims. And then we decided, okay, we're gonna do something now. The Clinton administration decided to do something, and so we had never had a CIA station in Sarajevo. So I was one of the few Balkan guys at the time, and I had already served in Belgrade full time for 2 years during the Cold War, leading up to the end of the Cold War when the Berlin Wall came down. That's when Yugoslavia sort of fell into civil war, first in Slovenia and Croatia, and then Bosnia, as we predicted. And the Clinton administration decided we need to open up a station in Sarajevo to have an official government-to-government relationship with the Bosnian security service. And so I was sent to do that at the time. I had done the same thing in Croatia a year or two earlier, because I spoke the language and knew the country, and had been in Belgrade for 2 years. In fact, I heard my division chief told me that it was Hillary Clinton's decision that CIA needs to send somebody there. And she was first lady at the time, not, she was Secretary of State. So I went there.
So she must have been much more than just first lady back then. I mean,
oh yeah,
she had a real say of what was going down.
She did, and whether you like her or not, she knew what she was doing. I remember I was in Kosovo during and after the war there, and she was there and was talking and involved in what was going on. And so, there's whether you agree with her or not, she is very sharp when it comes to foreign policy, and
sure.
And she was very involved even back then. But so I made my way to Sarajevo, which was surrounded by hostile Serb forces, and there was no air traffic and no safe or easy way to get even into Sarajevo because of the war. And that's in the book as well, that story, how I got in with the help of a couple of super secret military operators who I can't even describe who they work for, because who they work for is not even public today.
They're Delta guys, right?
No, it's not. It's not Delta.
Not Delta?
I can't say what it is. Let's just say it was under JSOC type guys.
Okay.
Anyway, they delivered me safely to ground zero, and then they got out. And then I met with the head of the Bosnian security service, and my mission there was, number one, just to collect intelligence on the war. What the Serbs were moving in on Sarajevo. The Clinton administration was planning on getting NATO involved to stop the Serb rampage in Bosnia. They needed intelligence, and so that part of the mission was easy. Basically, I said, give me, tell me where the Serbs are, where they located, where the anti-aircraft sites, and the Bosnians had all of that intelligence. They just couldn't act on it, so they were happy to provide that to me, which I then passed along immediately to Washington. And a few weeks later, I was back, and I saw in the news that they blew up some of the sites that I had identified.
Oh wow, that's got to be crazy.
It was great. Yeah, that's really what it's all about in that job. I mean, I had I was calling in reports over a secure satellite phone, and they would often go directly to Madeleine Albright or to the White House, unfiltered, without analyst, cleanup or anything like that, just
Sure.
because they really needed the intelligence. And while I was there, Srebrenica happened. If you're familiar with that, it was a so-called safe haven, one of a couple in Bosnia, where a lot of Bosnian Muslims had congregated and were
Oh yeah.
protected by UN troops, but UN troops didn't really have the mandate or the
Right.
ability to truly protect them against the Serbs if the Serbs chose to attack. And they did. The Serbs chose to attack, and this is in the book as well. And over the course of 3 days or so, the Bosnian Serbs along with Ratko Mladic, who was the general, the Bosnian Serb general, the political leader of the Bosnian Serbs was named Radovan Karadzic. They basically slaughtered about 8,000 men and boys, for the most part, in Srebrenica. And I reported that as it happened. And at first, the U.S. government didn't believe it because, we know the Serbs are bad, but
Right.
come on, heart of Europe, slaughtering Nazi style 8,000 people. Of course, it turned out to be exactly true.
Yeah.
So I was able to report that while I was there. Now, and while I was there, I also asked them about Iran's influence in Bosnia, because a couple of years earlier, when I was in Croatia, we intercepted an Iranian 747 that was trying to bring weapons and a few mercenaries to Bosnia by way of Croatia. And because of the arms embargo, no, you can't do that. Plus, it's Iran, so there's no way we're going to let Iran bring weapons into Europe. So that was our policy, and so I was interested. We didn't know much about the Iranian presence in Bosnia when I was there. There was a lot of mujahideen from Afghanistan who were there to fight, and this is one of the reasons I believe Osama bin Laden came to hate America so much, is because he believes that we turned our back on the Bosnian Muslims, and so he sent a lot of his fighters, who previously fought the Soviets in Afghanistan, to Bosnia. They married Bosnian women, and I saw a lot of them there, but they weren't a threat to me. Iran was another story. And so when I asked the chief of the Bosnian Security Service about Iran's presence there, all he said was, Iran is welcome here, and that's all I'm going to say. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything beyond that. It wasn't my primary focus. I was focused on the war, surviving the war.
Right.
Well, one day when I would drive every day at high speed to and from between my office and the Interior Ministry building, and in most countries, the Interior Ministry is the secret police. And this building was getting shelled while we were in it, and it was hairy stuff. And one day I go in to see him, and the receptionist, I normally would see him upstairs. The receptionist says, "Oh, go meet Marco over in that little room over there." So I said, "All right." So I go in, and Marco's in there, and they're dressed in camouflage fatigues. And next to him is this big guy who I thought he was an Arab. He looked Middle Eastern. Big guy, also wearing camouflage fatigues. Marco didn't introduce me. They just kind of, looked at me, and Marco says, "Oh, sorry, HK, I'll meet you upstairs in 10 minutes. So I said, all right, and I left. I thought that was kind of weird.
That's not sketchy at all, right?
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. It was weird, and I felt like I'd been, set up, but I didn't know exactly. I certainly didn't know who the other guy was. Well, I think it was later that day, that night, I found out through an unimpeachable source. In fact, I was able to read the cable traffic. The mystery man was the head of Iranian intelligence in Sarajevo.
Okay. Wow.
He had a plan. He wanted to see me in the flesh, and Marco was actually working for him. The entire Bosnian intelligence service and interior ministry was under the control of Iran. We didn't know that until then. And he had a plan to do what he did to William Buckley in Beirut in the early 80s, kidnap me off the street, interrogate me, torture me, and most likely kill me.
Jesus.
Because once you're in Iranian intelligence hands, you're never ever getting out. They never want their hand to be seen. And so you simply will not survive it. They tortured William Buckley to death in the Bekaa Valley. We found out afterwards. So once you're caught, you don't get out. And so I learned that. I actually was able to read an English translation of the Iranians' ops cable back to Tehran, describing his meeting where he saw me. He described me physically and laid out the plan of attack for me. So all of a sudden, I go from being worried about surviving this war and mortars and snipers and all that to being worried about, now I'm going to get picked up off the street by this Iranian who, and the Bosnians are collaborating with him. And I thought, they're supposed to be my friends. I'm from the American government and I'm here to help. They knew where I was, they knew where my office was, which is where I also slept, and they knew my vehicle. They monitored our phones. And so I coordinated, talked to headquarters and to military units in the region, I think in Stuttgart, to figure out, okay, how do I get out of here?
At that point, you're blown, like you have to get out of there.
Yeah, well, I talked to headquarters about it. They needed me to stay there for the intelligence, but on the other hand, I was the only guy there. There's no U.S. troops there. This was behind enemy lines. I'm the only guy from the CIA there. And so, they decided, yeah, you just probably need to get out as soon as possible. And so they talked about different options, including possibly sending in a helicopter after several days of preparation. And they said, no, don't do that, because there are no, helicopters here. All three sides will shoot at it if it comes in.
Right. Yeah.
And I can't wait 5 days anyway, or however long it would take, because by then they're gonna get me. And so now in the compound I stayed in, we had some diplomatic security guys, including a Navy SEAL who was there as a civilian. And so I was fine as long as I stayed put. They didn't know that I knew either.
Oh, okay.
And so the next day when I was supposed to meet him, I called up and said, hey, I'm a little under the weather. I'm going to miss today's meeting. In fact, I called my daughters who were with their mom in Hawaii and told them the same thing. So, they're monitoring our phones. It's going to be kind of innocent. Yeah, he said the same thing to his kids too. He's not feeling well. That's why he's not showing up. But if I continued to do that every day for a week, they're going to be on to me.
Sure.
Anyway, the bottom line is we decided that some of the local security guys in my office would take me back out the same way we came in over Mount Igman in a 2-vehicle convoy in the middle of the night. They're heavily armed. And again, the big threat is usually just trying not to get blown up by the Serbs. The Serbs would actually fire anti-aircraft guns at vehicles on that road. And I passed by several smoldering hulks of vehicles that had been hit by the Serbs' anti-aircraft guns. So that's why we went in and out, in the middle of the night, lights out, high speed. And it was just a very treacherous road. In fact, a week or so after I left, some American diplomats who were trying to go in on the same road were killed because the vehicle fell off the side of the road. They weren't even shot. I think they just fell off the road. So it was really dangerous. But at any rate, that was the plan. And we were hoping that, that I could get out without the Bosnians stopping me, because the Bosnians knew who I was and they were collaborating with the Iranians.
Right.
And so anyways, the whole story is in the book, but I managed to sneak out in the middle of the night. And then later on, they, in addition to using that targeting information to stop the Serbs, they also used that, they pressured, in order to, there was something called the Dayton Accords, where they wanted to bring peace to Bosnia between the Serbs and the Bosnian Muslims and Croats. And one of the conditions was that you had to get all the Iranians out of Bosnia. And so it was a close call, but they ended up using that as a way to pressure the Serbs, or the Bosnian Muslims rather, to get rid of the Iranians. And that did lead to peace in the area, a tense peace, but peace. So it wasn't for nothing, what I went through.
I mean, that's pretty harrowing. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not even like you're not in a cush position, and you're not in like, you know, Greece hanging out having fucking ouzo every day. Like, that's a real deal
Yeah.
kinetic fucking situation. Like, that's wild.
Yeah. And had I not been tipped off, and I thank a colleague of mine who was in Zagreb for tipping me off. Headquarters didn't tip me off, but he did. If I just hadn't been able to read that cable traffic, I wouldn't be here today. You know, it was just pure luck,
Right.
and that sort of sank in after I got out.
So
I got really lucky.
right. Headquarters, they intercepted the same signals that your buddy did, right? Like,
Headquarters found out about this report after my buddy called it to their attention.
gotcha. Okay.
They should have been aware of it,
You would think, right?
but it's headquarters, or we call them hindquarters, and we call them all kinds of things. But
Yeah.
anyway, thanks to my buddy, I'm still here.
Holy smokes.
I just got really lucky.
So after that, like, you're taking stock basically. Is that
Yeah.
big reason why you retired?
No, I actually had nothing to do with that. I was in for another year and a half or so, but it's a long story. But essentially, I was getting divorced and I would have had to go overseas again, and I just couldn't do it for family reasons. So that's kind of why I got out. But luckily, I was still able to continue doing the same type work, and that was good.
I mean, it obviously seems that's what you're good at. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's what I became good at, and that's all I knew at the time. And so, like I said, I initially just got into doing it privately, which is a hard way to make a living, and then I started the business in Iraq in May of 2003, right when the invasion was supposedly over. And I explained how that came about in the book as well. Basically, it was kind of modeled after a humanitarian project I was involved with in Kosovo during and after the war there in the late 90s, which became this big successful business for other people. It was my idea, and I made it happen, but it became a successful business for other people. So I said, hey, that's a good business model. And once I knew that Iraq was going to happen, no matter what the intelligence said, I kind of geared up to do the same business in Iraq, except this time it would be my business and I would run it and own it and all that. And we also did humanitarian work as well, but it's a for-profit business, and we're still plugging along.
Still going on right now, even with like the troops at like super low levels. I think it was like 2,500 troops in Iraq.
Yeah, and our business had nothing to do with the troops. I just went in purely as a private venture. I borrowed money and got it going. Now, eventually, the U.S. government piggybacked on what I was doing there and took advantage of it for many years because we could do things in every part of the country that they could not do. With an all Iraqi workforce, driving around little white Iraqi cars. And so we were extremely useful to the government for many years.
I mean, it sounds like the perfect network, really, that you would need if you want intelligence, like on the ground, actual intelligence. I mean,
yeah, it was, and they took good advantage of it and got rid of a lot of bad guys as a result. Bad guys that were, there because we invaded in the first place. So
sure, yeah, cleaning up the mess, yeah.
But anyway, they left, and my business still runs and has nothing to do with the government.
It's still happening.
Just a private business, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of Iraq, to be honest, I mean, it sucks. We lost how many? We lost 6,000 people. However many tens of thousands that are maimed and injured and PTSD, probably in a couple 100,000s, and Iraqi citizens too. You're talking 500,000 plus, which for something that it didn't do. What did it do for us? It didn't do anything for us. I understand their mission in Afghanistan, right? And I understand having an intelligence presence in every country in the Middle East, especially because you want to know what's what and what's going on, right? Like if you want to know if there's an Al-Qaeda cell, gaining steam somewhere, you want to be able to infiltrate it and get rid of it or something, do something to it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons we're still in Afghanistan is because we took our eye off the ball in Afghanistan and diverted troops and resources and attention to the invasion of Iraq, which was completely unnecessary. Had we stayed focused on Afghanistan, maybe we would have had a lot more success than we had, and maybe we wouldn't still be there.
Right.
But we diluted the good fight to go after Saddam, and to me it was a huge blunder by our government to
And
do
the
that.
Taliban's still around, like.
Yeah, they're just waiting us out.
Right, exactly. So did it help? Who knows? I mean, I'm not saying in terms of like fighting terrorism, we're probably in a better spot with like drones and stuff like that. People hate drones, and I understand both sides of it
Yeah,
because there's collateral damage there. But, I don't understand. What else can we do? I mean, we can't just go away, full stop, go away and be, we're putting ourselves at risk, basically, more or less. Like, I'm worried about actual attacks on U.S. soil and like to our embassies and like our U.S. personnel and stuff like that.
yeah,
You can't just go away. I wish it was that simple because, like you said, Iran already has a huge foothold. Russia has a huge foothold in there in the Middle East, like with Syria specifically.
yeah.
Even Turkey's trying to like swing their dicks around, and we basically left the Kurds hanging.
Yeah, with the collaboration of the American government, but
Right.
yeah, I know it's just a big mess, and anyway, and who knows? But I do think that had we not invaded Iraq, we would have had a lot more success in Afghanistan, and we wouldn't have the problems in Afghanistan we have today. You never know for sure, but that's sort of my take.
I mean, yeah, if we're leaving all of our focus on Afghanistan, more of like a counterterrorism kind of thought process instead of a counterinsurgency kind of thought process, a hybrid of both probably would have been optimal, I'm assuming, right? Because you don't want the Taliban to come back and a Sharia law and make it a place where, jihadist groups can just live, no sweat, and build up and
Right.
train. But you're right. Without question, if we didn't go into Iraq, Afghanistan probably would have looked a lot different right now.
I think so, yeah.
And less fucking 18, 19, 20-year-old kids would be dead.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about, you're a big Trump fan, right?
Yeah. Big fan.
How badly do you think Trump's, especially in the last like year and a half or more, 2 years of his administration, really 4 years of his administration, because he's an absolute fucking disaster. How badly do you think he's left like the CIA and all our entire intelligence apparatus, right? Because the president's job is 2/3 foreign policy, like foreign affairs, right? And it feels like he didn't even give a fuck. Like he didn't even pay attention to any of that shit. Like, sure, he killed Khomeini. Soleimani, sorry. Which, respect. I understand he did that. He did that to kind of get the story of impeachment because the timing was too perfect. And net, that guy being gone is good, right? Because that guy is a piece of garbage. But in terms of like intelligence and everything like that, did we take a step back? Are we less safe?
Yeah, definitely we are. I mean, he didn't care about anything other than himself, and I should preface all this by saying people in the CIA and the FBI are not political. I mean, everybody has their own, personal views. And I make a point in my book, I've been apolitical my entire life. I couldn't tell you what my colleagues in the CIA, whether they're Democrat or Republican, we literally never, ever talked about it. All we cared about was, doing our thing overseas and focused on that. And, the reason I'm anti-Trump is not because I'm, a Democrat who's anti-Republican. In fact, when I was in law school, I worked for a Republican named John Rhodes from Arizona. He was one of the Republicans who, when Nixon was about to resign, went to Nixon and said, "Hey, you need to do the right thing for the country and resign." So I've always been independent, but for reasons of foreign policy, which was my only interest, I never really cared about domestic politics. I tended to be, more Republican and favored Republican approach to being, strong defense, fiscal responsibility, and that type of thing. But I took an oath, as did everybody, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I sincerely believe that Donald Trump is a threat to America's national security. And I've been saying that for the last 4 years. So if he were a Democrat, I would say the exact same thing. And he used to be a Democrat. So
Right.
it's really not about politics to me. It's about what a threat he poses to our national security. And I believe he has weakened, he gutted the State Department, and say what you will about the State Department. And I make a few good-natured jokes about them in my book, but the fact is, I have a lot of respect for what they do. They are our front lines. If they are not allowed to do their job or are unable to do their job, the only response we have is covert action or war.
Right.
You want the diplomats to succeed. And he gutted the State Department, which is now, it's going to take a while, but the adults are in charge again in Washington, and they've got a good Secretary of State, and they're going to try and rebuild morale. As for the intelligence service, they couldn't. We depend so much on our foreign partners. Like when I was in Bosnia, even though it turned out he was working for the Iranians,
Right. Yeah.
we depend on foreign partners to collect a lot of intelligence around the world. Donald Trump used to share that with Russia.
Dude, that's the craziest part about it. When he had the ambassador in,
yeah,
and he's just giving Israeli intelligence to these guys, like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Mind-boggling stuff. And so our foreign partners are much more reluctant now to share intelligence with us because of what Trump has done. Again, it's going to take some rebuilding, and I think we can get back. But he destroyed morale. And again, not for political. These are just people who want to do their job, professionals who want to do their job, and to be denigrated by Trump, and which he often denigrated the CIA.
I mean, look at with the impeachment hearing. You had a ton of civil servants who've worked in the State Department,
right,
who worked for NSC, whatever. I mean, it's interchangeable, right? They bounce around. It's it's a small world probably in that world. And these people, they just head down, do their shit, do their jobs. They don't really search out publicity. They don't really search out anything. And I could see, if I got a job, I wanted to be in the CIA when I was young. When 9/11 happened and all that, I ended up being a criminal instead of helping. So it ended up you probably get such a bond with people that you're doing the job for the person that you're doing next to you. Right? You don't want anything to happen to them.
Right.
And you're doing it for a little bit more of a higher purpose. Sure, okay. Right. I don't believe in perpetual warfare, right? I don't think that we need that to survive as the United States. But like you said, the State Department is an integral part. We need that to function the right way.
Yes.
For things to happen, for us to have decent relationships with people abroad, even with people that we hate, like Iran, North Korea. We need that to function.
Yes, we do. And and you saw during the impeachment how talented and dedicated and bright these people were, who just remain in the shadows their entire lives. They were forced to come out because of this impeachment. But that's the deep state. To me, the deep state is people who just devote their lives to the country, and in an apolitical way, and they're professional, and they're talented, and they're unsung heroes. And that's
And think about it, right? Somebody like Fiona Hill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really? There is nobody. She's so impressive. It's crazy. We're lucky to have somebody like that on the NSC. She could probably make more money doing anything else, but still, and she's an immigrant, right? She still fucking grinds and works for the government.
Exactly. Look at Vindman. Same story.
Yeah.
That's and to have them denigrated and set aside by Trump and his cronies is just despicable to me. And again, this is not political. Nobody's ever done that. And in my book, I criticize Obama, Clinton, and both Bushes. I mean, because they did what I consider to be stupid things in the area of foreign policy. Right. They ignored the intelligence that we provided them. And all presidents do that, both parties. That's kind of routine. And you can't make everybody happy all the time. But again, what Trump has done is a whole nother level, and he's taken things to extremes, and has really weakened our country in so many ways. Just thank God he's no longer in office.
The Solarwinds hack.
Yeah.
I mean, That's a fucking issue.
Yeah.
No one's talking about it really. They talk about it once they first came out, but now it's more like, Trump's impeaching again and Will Biden, blah, 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 which I understand. Like the domestic stuff is important for sure. And I'm sure the new intel people, the new State Department people are on this. Like they're fucking figuring out what's going on. But like you're talking, that's a major breach.
Yeah. And I think we're going to find out a lot in the years to come about, my focus in my book also, and again, my book is not political. It's about my CIA life.
Oh yeah, your book's good. I mean, listen, you criticize everybody, right?
But I do mention just in passing, sort of, that to me, Trump has been a winning collaborator of the Russian government. Everything he says and does benefits Russia, not America. And so I suspect that we're going to find out a lot more about Trump's ties to the Soviet intelligence service than the Russian intelligence service after the end of the Cold War, going back to the late 70s or early 80s.
Really?
On my website, hkroy.com, there's a section called Extras, and in it is a fake but realistic and humorous satirical KGB file on Agent Orange, on Trump. It's something I pulled together based on open source information, but also on my own analysis of looking at the facts, coming at it from my background. I'm convinced that he is and has been under the influence of and acting to the benefit of Putin and Russia. And I hope we hear a lot more details about this in the future. Now he's got a lot of other problems as well, like 500,000 dead Americans, most of which would still be alive had he actually focused on the pandemic and not tried to boost his reelection chances.
If he focused on the election, if he focused on the pandemic, right, and made that his number one issue, and the briefings weren't so ridiculous, and he didn't have to go out there and bloviate. If he did what he needed to do and just even acted like he gave a fuck, and we still lost 500,000 Americans, he would have been reelected.
Absolutely. I remember all he had to do was take the easy route, hand it off to Anthony Fauci, and let Anthony Fauci take the blame or the credit. Right. And he would have been reelected. Literally 1 year ago today, I remember this, it was sinking in when you would see Trump on the news that he is going to lie to us about this because he believes it's going to hurt the economy. And he thinks if the economy is hurt, then it's going to hurt his reelection chances, even though he ends up making everything worse. And I remember saying at the time, the bad news is we're all going to be on ventilators and broke, but at least he won't be reelected. And that's pretty much, what happened. But yeah, he would have been reelected had he just stayed out of it and let Anthony Fauci make the call.
Stayed out of it. Lean on the people you need to lean on. So the people that make the tests, do whatever you can.
An actual national plan of action, which they never had.
And you might have saved maybe half of those people, or if not more,
Maybe more. And maybe the economy wouldn't have been so devastated. It would have been for a shorter amount of time, and then we could have gotten back the way other countries have. But we're like the worst country on earth in terms of the number of cases and the number of deaths, all avoidable.
I think it comes down to just people being selfish, for lack of it, like to boil it down and concentrate it. I think, and listen, granted, if Trump took it more seriously, like the Trumpers would have definitely taken it more seriously themselves and not been like, oh, it's just the flu, blah, blah, blah. No, but I think people are just selfish.
He politicized it. It's a virus. How do you politicize it? It's like wearing a seatbelt. Wearing a mask is not political, but he made it political. And that's a big part of the problem. Everything he did made the situation worse.
Let me ask, I know you told me before you're not like a domestic expert, on domestic affairs, but in terms of what's happened, like the radicalization of a certain sect of the Republican Party, the Trump side, I mean, what do you make? And obviously with the insurrection and stuff, like, was that a coup in your opinion? What was that?
I just can't believe this has happened to our country. I never in a million years would I have thought this could happen. I saw it happen in Yugoslavia, happens in Iraq. We have tribalism and people believe conspiracy theories. And that was one of the warnings at the end of my book was that, I never thought I would see this happening in my own country, but the tribalism is under Trump is the same as it was under Milosevic in Yugoslavia. what's scary is, this isn't just back and forth partisan bickering like has been around forever. This is a big chunk of the American population. I don't know if it's a third or more that are detached from reality. They believe lies. Now you have Trump and other Republicans who are responsible for pushing the lies. The biggest lie being that he actually won the election. But you have the people who believe it. It's almost like it become like a cult. And I don't think you can actually reason with them, especially as long as their leadership continue to push these lies. A lot of the people who he incited to attack the Capitol, I mean, they believe what Trump says. They believe he was robbed. He actually won the election. Well, if I believe that was true, I'd be pissed off too.
Sure, yeah.
But it's not, objective reality, it's just not true. And so how do you deal with that situation? And that's really scary. One way you deal with it is like Yugoslavia, you split up into multiple regions, multiple countries. I don't think we can do that. I don't think we want to do that.
No.
But that's one option. Another option that people a lot smarter than I am have suggested, and I agree with completely, is if we ever hope to unite this country and have a common sense of fact, common agreement on facts, maybe have some sort of national service requirement. So when you turn 18, you join either the military, or if you don't want to go in the military, something else, a national park service, or you help in some sort of mandatory national service where you serve your country. Ask not what my country can do for me. Ask what I can do for my country. That sort of concept. If everybody went through something like that, I really believe it would help in so many ways, and you wouldn't have just certain people fighting our wars and that type of thing. Because let's face it, most Americans have not served their country in any capacity and don't have that common experience.
I haven't. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's in my book. My training in the CIA was one of the greatest experiences of my life. We went through this experience you go through with others. Some of it was paramilitary type training, other was spy school training. But I'm friends to this day with people I went through training with. There's nothing political about it. I don't know, and I don't care what their politics are, And it's a really fantastic experience, and I do think that first of all, it's fair. Why are certain people having to fight wars for us? Let's face it, most Americans don't even know anybody who's in the military, and so it's a great equalizer, and I think it's so good for so many reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea for sure. I mean, because what else would unify us? The only thing that would unify us besides something like that, which is absolutely, it makes sense practically, is getting into another war. And nobody wants that.
Right. We don't need that.
Nobody needs that. Right, exactly. Nobody needs another 9/11. I mean, I saw the fucking towers go down from where I live, basically. So nobody's interested in doing that. And the last 20 years have been, listen, Afghanistan, I get it. Iraq, I mean, it was absolutely fucking blundered. You know what I mean? And
I mean, look how it affected our country. It's been 20 years now. It's unreal that it's been that long. It seems like yesterday, but yeah, we don't want something like that to bring us together again.
No. You would think a pandemic would, right?
And had we had responsible adult leadership in the White House, like I said, I think things would be a lot different right now.
They're so brain dead. I don't want to make this a shit on Trump show, but I can't help myself sometimes. He literally would have won 60. Oh, yeah. He would have dominated the election if he just showed a little bit of leadership.
But he's incapable of that. And if you ever read these books written by his niece or by Michael Cohen, people who really, really know him, he's got serious mental health issues, and the way he's wired is everything is about him. How is this going to benefit me personally? And that's just how he sees the world. And that's how thank God we survived him. I say we survived. We now have 500,000 dead in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
But not that he started the pandemic, but all he had to do was handle it like an adult. And
that's it. Just don't come up with anything. Yeah. Listen to the experts you have, right? You're the president of the United States. You have the biggest military, but we spend money on this stuff. We have brilliant people that tell us X, Y, Z. Just fucking be an executive. Executives don't do shit. They just listen to the people that work for them.
He just is not wired that way. He cannot do that. Everything is about him, and we're living with the consequences now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what went down. Do you think there was any kind of like kind of foul, not foul, I mean, I guess foul play, where they made like some National Guard units stand down and things like that in terms of like January 6th, the day of?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm no conspiracy theorist, but it was clear that they were leading up to this day, and Trump was involved with it, and his kids, and from day one, that this was all planned. And the fact that there was no National Guard response, and this is why he put his stooge loyalists in charge at the Pentagon and elsewhere, just like any good dictator would do. You remove the professionals, and that way his guy at the Pentagon, who has the authority to say, no, we're not going to deploy National Guard troops, that's what they did. They delayed it. And he sat there on TV with a big grin on his face watching the whole thing. And so, I think in that sense, the fix was in so that they would hold back the forces and the good guys, and let the insurgents, let the insurrectionists storm the Capitol.
I mean, it's so crazy. And the funny thing is like how they try to compare it to the BLM movement, which I understand that there's people that are troublemakers, and the people who break shit or hurt people need to get arrested.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what side it is. If you're gonna break shit and fuck things up, you're gonna go to jail. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's just, but like what BLM, what they're doing, actually has some sense. Like it's rooted in some sense of truth. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
The election.
There's a legitimate reason for it.
Right. Yeah. That's the crazy, and like the amplifying of that message from Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, and Twitter, and everywhere else. Yeah. It's just so irresponsible.
Yes. Yeah. No, BLM is rooted in truth and reality, and this attack on the Capitol was rooted in lies. It's as simple as that.
And like the funny thing is because he's painted orange and he's a joke basically to normal people.
Yep.
We don't take it seriously. We've gotten so numb to it.
Yep.
But like you said, let's say 74 million people voted for him. Let's say, I don't know, 30 or 40 million of those people are actual hardcore,
right?
QAnon Trumpers. They drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
That's a fuck ton of people.
How do you deal with a cult? I mean, you have to deprogram people who are in cults, and as long as their leaders are spreading these lies, and this Marjorie, whatever her name is,
oh my God,
they spread the lies to people, and this is, I mean, maybe this will split the Republican Party into like normal Republicans and Trump Republicans, and so that's why you see people like McCarthy trying to walk the fine line and have it both ways.
He's crazy. Yeah.
Just. There's no courage. Like I said, the Republican I worked for in law school, in those days, Republicans, for the most part, were honorable, public servants, just like Democrats were.
Sure.
Again, the Republicans, even Nixon said, okay, I got caught. For the sake of the country, I'm going to resign. That's what they did. You don't see that in the Republican Party today, except Mitt Romney.
Right. Mitt Romney. Yeah. Listen, you want to be a corporate Republican? That's fine. I don't agree with it. I'm definitely more of a social democrat. Like I think we should have healthcare and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's fine because it's good to have a little bit of balance. It's good to be able to like have an actual conversation, like have some kind of discourse to figure things out. But when you're dealing with like the Marjorie Taylor Greene, that fucking lunatic, she was on the House floor today. Saying,
I had to mute. I couldn't listen to her. I had to mute it. It's just like
oh no, 9/11 definitely happened on the House floor. She's a representative in the House of Representatives. It's fucking mind-boggling to me.
It is. And this one from Colorado. I mean, this is the new face. This is the Trump face of the Republican Party, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. At this point, it looks like they're going to split in two.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't like corporate Democrats either because I think they're fucking snake oil salesmen. They're full of shit and they don't do anything, right? But, you know, I'd rather have some, I don't even like them either, but I'd rather have some of them than like the hardcore, crazy QAnon Republicans that are in, you know, the Olberts and the Taylor Greens and that guy Gates. No one's got a face that you want to punch more than Matt Gates.
Oh, I know. Jim Jordan maybe, but no.
Oh my God, yeah, good call.
It's like a cult, and they know better. And a lot of these people, and this guy Hawley, you know, these guys aren't dumb. He went to Harvard, and
right.
You know, he knows exactly what he's doing, and that makes it even worse. You know,
it's a fake populist message. That's the problem, right? And I was having a discussion with my cousins. They say, "Oh yeah, like the far left, like the AOCs and the Bernies, they have a populist message, and sort of." And the other guys, like the far right, kind of try and pull a populist message, but they don't stand for anything besides cult of personality, right? And for lack of a better word, fascism or some kind of authoritative thing. Granted, if you go too far left, you get to the same thing. You get authoritarianism. But what I'm looking for is simple, dude, right? Like, granted, we spend a lot of money on defense. I'm sure most of it's needed. I'm sure it could use an audit, like anything else, could use an audit to see where we can, you know, nip things in the bud and save here and there like any business would do.
There we go.
Good. All right, cool. Yeah, so like what I'm looking for is just a quality healthcare system that most developed countries have.
Yeah. What's funny is Mitt Romney, Republican, had that system in Massachusetts, and Republicans even liked it. And the only reason they didn't like it was because Obama tried to push it through. But that's basically.
And think of it like this, dude. Like Obama, he did some good things, but let's be honest, he's fucking toothless too. Foreign affairs stuff, he did all right. Like great, like he didn't really puss out on anything. Like he did what he needed to do. He did like the pragmatic thing, right? He didn't do the like, oh, let's pull everybody out and whatever happens, happens. Like he actually thought through stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of healthcare, granted, it's probably better than the garbage that was before. But the insurance companies killed the public option that actually made it affordable for people. So even then, like you can have a majority in Congress and you still get watered down. You still get chopped down by the overlords, which are the corporations.
Yeah. I don't know much about healthcare other than it costs way too much money.
Yeah, exactly. That's everybody. That's the same thing. Like it's just super expensive.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know what we do. I don't know what we do about these crazies.
That's the question. Like I said, how do you deprogram them? Are their leaders ever going to speak the truth or not? We don't want to divide up into multiple countries, although it'd be nice to round them all up and send them to
think about it, right? If we rounded it up, if we cut up all into separate countries, right, state-wise, or like, let's say regions, we'd be funding their asses too.
Well, yeah.
Like we do now in the United States.
Exactly. So, yeah, I'm not saying that's a practical solution.
No, of course not.
Thinking out loud, well, how do you deal with it? And again, I agree with people who say we need some sort of national service mandatory for everybody when they turn 18 for a year and a half, or whatever it is, I like that idea.
I mean, listen, you join the army or the military, you get free college, right? Like there are benefits to it.
All kinds of benefits. And it would be I think it'd be a good experience. I have daughters, and I wish my daughters had gone through something like, not necessarily the military, but some sort of mandatory public service. You do something,
Corp, something like that.
Yeah, whatever, and allow them to kind of choose. Give them all kinds of options.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's a great idea.
So what's the biggest threat to the United States right now?
The experts say China is always the biggest threat for one reason or another. Certainly economically. I mean, Russia's been described as a trailer park with a gas station. So economically, they don't make much of an impact. Although, they've got nukes and they're hostile. And so it's going to be good to see our government deal with Russia the way they should once again. But China, I guess, is the big long-term threat.
I don't think China's going anywhere. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like we all have nukes now, so I can't see. Are we that stupid to get into nuclear war? We haven't done it yet.
Yeah, not anymore. We're not. I mean, hopefully, but and I think we just re-signed the START agreement or whatever it's called yesterday. Extended that for another 5 years, so that's good. You know,
Listen, I hope, like you said, that's why the State Department's integral. Like it's the most important. I think one of the most important things we need. I mean, I think of like the CIA as kind of like part of the State Department, but not really, like the crazy cousin of the State Department, basically.
Well, again, the State Department is the open diplomatic, and they'll have sensitive secret meetings and all that too. But what they do is open and public and not hidden. Whereas the CIA and there is overlap. And the State Department is also, in addition to maintaining good relations in whatever country they're in, they're also collecting information, writing reports, economic reports, political reports, that type of thing. The CIA goes after the little bit of information that's left that is truly secret that you cannot get through open sources or through open meetings with local officials or whatever. And what drives the CIA is this list of requirements or questions which the national security community, the White House, the Pentagon, the State Department come up with. Here's our wish list. This is what we really want to know. What is Kim Jong-un thinking? What the hell what are his plans? You're not going to get that with a face-to-face meeting with a North Korean diplomat. You need to steal secrets sometime.
Sure.
Like we do with human sources, which are, to me, the best sources oftentimes, because they can tell you what somebody's intentions are, no matter what he may write down. Obviously, there's electronic eavesdropping and that type of thing as well. But the focus of the intelligence community is on that very little bit of information that truly is secret, that other agencies cannot get access to.
Are you worried about the compartmentalization of intelligence?
No, I mean, that's a good thing for the most part. Like, you only know what you need to know. And so there are times when it creates problems, like with 9/11, had the FBI and the CIA cooperated more, shared more intelligence, who knows, maybe we could have prevented 9/11. A lot of that's just institutional and will never change just because of the way they're territorial and that type of thing. But compartmentation in general is a good thing. Like, so when I'm in Yugoslavia, I have access to everything I need to have access to do my job. But the day I leave, I no longer know what's going on in Yugoslavia.
No, that's understandable. But like the one you mentioned, like specifically with CIA and FBI for 9/11, just to get actionable intelligence to the right people that need to make the decisions quicker, right. You know what I mean? Just to make it more streamlined, I guess.
Yeah. And again, they have made a huge effort to do that. And, the idea is, like I mentioned in the book too, like General McChrystal, when he was in Iraq, you sit everybody in the same room around one big table, NSA, CIA, JSOC, everybody, and we're all going to sit here and we're going to share information and cooperate and go get results. And that approach works. And the US government has done that as well. And it works, I think better than it did before 9/11. But the fact is, there's still these institutional, prejudices and territorialism and that type of thing. And there's just that the CIA people sometimes don't trust the FBI and vice versa. A lot of that is from the past.
Sure.
And it's, that was certainly not something I ever personally encountered, because I work with the FBI as well and the military. And again, for the most part, it really works beautifully. But the fact is, things fall between the cracks, and certain things are not shared either because they don't want to share them or because something fell between the cracks administratively, got screwed up. But
so what happens now with Trump? What's going to happen? What do you think? Next 6 months to a year?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I doubt that he'll be convicted in the Senate just because Republicans won't do what they should do.
Nah, they're pussies. Sorry, I'm being an animal, but they're scared.
No, absolutely. But he faces. I wouldn't want to be him right now. I think he faces a lot of civil lawsuits as well as criminal prosecutions. And where do you begin with a guy? You start with genocide of 500,000 Americans. I mean, you could make the case criminally that he knew better than anybody what we were faced with.
Right.
With Bob Woodward's book, and he intentionally screwed up the response to help himself. That's negligent homicide. Call it what you like. You can go after him for his ties to Russia. How about inciting this this insurrection. There are, credible cases, accusations against him, not only of sexual harassment, but of rape, and including rape of minors in the past. Minors, because he was, most of his friends, QAnon likes to talk about how Hillary Clinton and all these pedophiles are out there. The pedophiles are Trump and his friends like Epstein and all these others who have histories of being arrested for this kind of thing. And again, there are credible accusations that he raped an underage girl that was provided by Epstein and his British friend, in addition to other rape cases. Then you've got tax evasion,
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
You've got campaign finance violations.
Right.
When you pay off Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet the day before the election, so that you doesn't harm your election chances, that's violation of the campaign finance laws.
So the Mueller report, everyone likes to say, oh, it was a hoax, nothing ever happened, no collusion. I mean, if he wasn't the president, he would have been indicted.
Right. And now I wish Mueller had done a lot more. I think he ended up being a coward in the end and didn't do the right thing. But he made the case that Trump obstructed justice. He did this, he did that. There was clearly collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Whether it had an impact, who knows. But yes, had he not been president, he would have been prosecuted criminally for some of the things that were in the Mueller report. So hopefully they can bring those up now as well. So,
do you think Mueller balked and didn't go the full way because he was the president?
He's just such a. I mean, I like Mueller, and I wish he'd had more guts and more courage to do the right thing and say the right thing. He was just being, sometimes the bureaucrats they think, they overthink things, and
he over-lawyered himself. He basically was too much, right?
And just, come on, just come out and say the right thing. And he kind of did. And again, if you read the whole Mueller report, which nobody ever does, I think you can probably pull out a bunch of live prosecutions that they go after Trump for. So in theory, I would think he's facing dozens of civil lawsuits as well as criminal prosecutions. So I hope, even if it's just an OJ type thing, I hope they get him on something.
Yeah. I mean, you got to figure insurrection in terms of being convicted in the Senate is not going to happen. 17 Senate Republicans to go and do the right thing is like asking to fucking dance on a razor blade. You know what I mean?
What's funny is if they were allowed to vote secretly, they'd probably convict him. So in other words, they're cowards, and they fear the Trump voter.
It's so interesting because this all comes down to like marketing, for lack of a better word. Like, Trump was liked and he became so popular because he had this populist message about draining the swamp and doing all that. He did none of that. Not a single thing of it.
He despises the people who support him.
Right. I know. He would fucking walk away from them if somebody came up to him.
He despises them. Let's face it, and I'm always been reluctant to call anybody a racist. But the fact is, this is what a lot of Trump's message is about. It's blame the other guy.
Right.
And we're the victims here, and we got to protect ourselves. They're going to take it away from you. Mm-hmm. And there's no question about it. That's what it is. That's just what it is,
And the funny thing is, if a person with had good faith intentions, was a centrist, not right wing, not left wing, down the middle, look at things pragmatically, break down problems and manage them the way that you should if you're thinking clearly, and you had a populist message, I think that person probably would be assassinated. But that person could really go far in terms of like bringing people together.
Yeah. Well, and again, I never thought one way or the other about Biden. I never paid much attention to him. But I really think now that I've learned so much about him this past couple of years, he is the right guy for the moment. He is decent and he is honest,
right?
And he's experienced, and he comes from the old school bipartisanship and that type of thing. And he, has a conscience and he has empathy. So I can't imagine really anybody much better than him for this moment in time. And I don't think he wanted to run. I think that where was it, in Charlottesville, where Trump said there's fine people on both sides.
Yeah.
I think that's what got to Biden. He said, all right, I have to run. We can't deal with this kind of a situation.
I mean, if Biden was maybe 10 years younger, I'd be with you, like more on Biden's side. Listen, he's definitely compared to Trump, he's like
Oh yeah.
fucking Mother Teresa. You know, he's like amazing. And he is you could tell he's a genuine guy. You could tell, yeah, all right, he's been in politics for 40 years. I get it. Fine.
Yeah.
But he's not a piece of shit like Trump is.
No. No,
And
I
I'm
believe
okay
it.
with talking like this because I hate Trump. Like I can't stand it. He's
Oh, I do
con
too.
artist.
I despise him because of the threat he poses to our country, and that's what this is all about for me. Is again, it's not Democrat or Republican, although the Republicans have now come under his sway. But no, he is. I think he's a vile human being. Like if you read his life story, he's been a rotten human since he was a kid. He's just bad to the bone. This guy.
Yeah.
And to think that all these people fall for him, and he hasn't done anything for any of his supporters. You know, it's all been lies. He's done nothing for them.
What have they done, dude? Besides the tax cut for mostly richer people.
Right. He's done nothing other than prey upon their feelings and their fears and say it's us versus them, the racism. That's all he gives them. He's like given permission to all these people who normally were kind of stayed under their rocks, like Marjorie, what's her name?
Yeah.
You know, he's given them permission to come out from under their rocks and spew their hatred and their ignorance and their conspiracy theories.
Right.
He made it okay to do that. That's what he's done for them.
Exactly. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's usually a fringe actor, you know, somebody who's crazy, like an Alex Jones or the rest of them, take your pick. Now they become more and more mainstream when they're standing on the House floor today.
Yeah.
She's saying, like, and this is like probably most of the Republican caucus telling her, yeah, admit that 9/11 happened. Like, can you, it's crazy, dude. It's so crazy.
No, I know. It's insane. But Trump has made he's made them heroes, you know. So now we're proud to go out, and I live on the central coast of California, which is kind of Trump country in many ways. And there are people, every time I have to go out, whether it's to the car dealership to get my car fixed or the UPS store, there are people who won't wear a mask, always white, and they want to start a fight. And, you know, it's just the ignorance is beyond belief, but it's like they're members of a cult. And it's, I don't know how we deal with it, to tell you the truth.
What do you think is going to happen with the Senate trial? Think it's going to be anything? Like, you think they're going to say anything? Is there going to be witnesses? I mean, the Democrats are controlling it, so I guess they can kind of set the rules in a certain way. But
I don't really know. I mean, it sounds like they invited Trump to come and testify.
He's not going there. That'll incriminate itself in a second.
Yeah, but
can you imagine? Oh my god.
Yeah, so they don't know what, you know, his lawyers they don't know what's worse if Trump lies, which he'll do, or if he tells the truth. Either way, he's in trouble. So yeah, I don't see him actually testifying. But I'm guessing they'll go through the motions, and you know, there's going to be voices of reason and witnesses and evidence, and they're going to make a strong case that Trump and his people planned this. He didn't just incite it that day. This was in the works for weeks, and it's a slam dunk case if it were any other situation. But since it's the Senate, you know, who's people who were actually witnesses to the crime and who were scared for their lives as well.
Right.
You know, this could have been a real bloodbath. I mean, we're really lucky that more people were not killed.
Could you imagine they got the Pence?
Yeah, including Mike Pence.
They would have killed Pence.
They would have killed him. And so, you know, whether you like Mike Pence or not, that's not right.
I don't like him either, and it's not right. Right, exactly.
All right, and that almost happened. And so, though I think they're going to make a slam dunk case, and the Republicans will be cowards and do the wrong thing, and we'll move on from there.
That's it. You got anything else? I mean, we gotta end this on a lighter note. I mean, I don't even know what the lighter note is. Do you ever get, like, when you're working, right? When you're doing your, you know, the private company, or you're working for the agency, do you ever get that, like, fuck, this is fucked? What is going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the time. And again, I guess to me, the good news is, thank God Trump lost, because had he won, you know, we'd be in a lot more trouble right now. So yeah, we have to fix a lot of things that he broke all around the world and at home. But now we have a chance to survive it. Whereas, not that his movement is going away, as you've seen, you know, they're here to stay, but at least the government is back in friendly hands. And I'll criticize our government from here to eternity. And
I won't stop either.
But at least it's kind of like back to normal now, you know, and it's not run by a madman who was out for himself, no matter what the cost.
The
So
funny thing is, if he really had good intentions, he could have done some good shit.
oh, absolutely. But he doesn't. He's not wired that way. He is, I think, purely an evil human being.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, I try to find some kind of like silver lining there or something, and it isn't there, dude. Like, it isn't there.
I've, from day one, I've tried to find anything positive about him or what he's done, and there's just nothing. It's like all bad. And I just can't believe that people fall for this, but it's where we are.
Are you worried about, you know how like the Chinese had that like honeypot, a honey trap girl, like who was, banging mayors and with Swalwell and all that. Like, I mean, it seems like we're more at risk, Americans are, because we do have a multicultural country.
And we're so wide open. We're open and,
right. Because how do we do that as Americans? Like, we have to go and actually recruit an indigenous foreign national, like what CIA does. There, they can send somebody to America, go to school, do the American thing, and you can spy that way. And it's more
much easier. Yeah, it's easy to spy on America. It's really easy, and we're open society. And look, we give them in the old days. The Soviet Union did exactly what Putin has been doing in terms of spreading disinformation on Facebook and that type of thing. It's just in the old days they had to do it the old-fashioned way. Now they have these free tools that America gives them, Facebook and Twitter, and they just take advantage of it and spread disinformation. They're piggybacking on the lunatics who are already here and just fanning the flames and making things worse. So we make it very easy for them. And that's part of the reason we have the lies. It's not all because of Russia, but they certainly have played a role in this and are taking advantage of it because we give them the tools. It's harder for us to recruit a spy inside China than it is for China to recruit a spy inside the U.S. Now, with the Swalwell case, my understanding is the system worked. They found out what was going on. They alerted him, called off contact, and so the system worked, which it does quite a lot. But no, we're a pretty easy target.
One more thing, the big tech now. I mean, they got rid of Trump, Parler. They deplatformed Parler, basically, like Amazon and Google. What do you think of that? I mean, is it a slippery slope? Like, sure, Trump inciting violence.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to do it, right? Because he didn't seem like he was fucking remorseful. He was just going through the motions to try and like cover his ass.
Yeah, I mean, it is a slippery slope, and I'm all in support of free speech. Obviously, that's one of the basics of our country. But the First Amendment has to do more with the government's not allowed to interfere with your right of free speech. Twitter is a private company, and so the analogy I like is Twitter's a private company, so they're allowed to ban anybody they want, just like that bakery was allowed to not sell cakes to the gay couple. So you support that. So now again, free speech is something a little bit different, but and in this case, free speech does not give you the right to incite violence, and that's an exception to the free speech rule. And here's the president of the United States not only spreading lies daily. With Washington Post tracked over 30,000 lies that he told.
Crazy, I know. Oh my God.
Half of them in the final year. But so it's dangerous lies, and that's kind of why we are where we are. But then using it to incite violence, that's not protected speech.
Right. No, I agree with you completely. I mean, and listen, you need to abide by the terms and conditions of that said platform or said, hosting site, whatever. I think it's a good thing. I think they definitely need some sort of regulation in terms of like we can't give them that much power where like they could just willy-nilly pick who they want to talk, because I could see it getting out of control. I could see there's extraordinary circumstances that like Trump or like the Ayatollah or whoever the fuck, who's causing issue and inciting actual violence. Like, hey, be there at fucking 1 o'clock, because that's literally what Trump did.
Yeah, and I'm going with you.
Right.
Of course, he didn't go.
Right. Yeah, he's gonna be in his fucking hermetically sealed fucking bunker, dude.
Down there tapping into the strategic diaper reserve once again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the tricky part. I think that, is gonna define, I think, the next couple decades for sure. I think there needs to be some kind of regulations that make sense in terms of not letting them have, carte blanche, do whatever they want to do. I mean, listen, it's good to expect, the guy Jack, he wasn't doing it. He did it with the best intentions, obviously. Like, he didn't do it to like censor some kind of person who's being abused or something. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the other thing with these fucking these mutts, the Hawley and the rest of them going around talking about censorship. Like, fuck off, dude.
Right.
Get lost, dude. You're a Harvard graduate or Yale, whatever. Cruz is Harvard, I think, and he's Yale, whatever. Yeah. Ivy League fucking schools. You know better. You know better.
And they're on TV all the time. Who's muzzling them? You can't shut them up.
Right, exactly. You have TV spots every other night.
Yeah.
We're fucked, HK. No, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, inshallah, as they say.
Right. Let's get the vaccine out there. You an anti-vaxxer? How do you feel? You like the vaccine, right?
I'm ready for the vaccine, man. If Fauci says take it, I'll take it. I'm a big believer in vaccines.
Same here. I'm down for the vaccine. I think mRNA ones, I mean, it's kind of brilliant how they've fucking done it, how they figured it out.
Unreal. Thank God we've got, here we have the CDC, which has always been the most respected health organization in the world, and Trump, dismantled it and ignored it and denigrated it, and just we lost a year thanks to him.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. The CDC, right, like, was something you could trust. The FDA, kind of something. I mean, you need to be able to trust some institutions. I know establishment's bad, blah blah blah, but if we don't have these established institutions with some level of trust that the people have in it, then we have nothing. We're fucked.
No, we're getting it back now. Like, he did his best to destroy everything, good about our government. And so we're going to rebuild it now, I think. I
mean, listen, my friends, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm from more people I know are conservative. Some people hate Trump, right? Some people like Trump. Some people think I'm a liberal cuck. I don't give a fuck. Because I'm going into everything with good faith,
right.
I want to know if I can get my mind changed by like actual information, like facts,
Absolutely.
I'm okay with changing my opinion on stuff, right?
Me too.
That's the problem, is the people that act with bad faith. To me,
that's
fuck
dangerous.
them, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I agree. It's dangerous, but that's where we are.
All right, HK. I want everyone to go check out your book. I'm going to do a minute thing before here, like plugging the book and stuff like that. You want to give it a plug again?
Yeah. So the book is called American Spy: Wry Reflections on My Life in the CIA. It covers lots of the world and lots of fun and funny CIA stories, from training through Latin America to the Balkans to Iraq. It's not political, other than, like I said, a comment at the start and the end. I'm very apolitical, and hope you enjoy the book.
Yeah, it's a good book. It's really funny. One more question. How was that the publication process? Basically, like, you have to send it to the CIA for review and blah, go back and forth. How was that? Was that a nightmare?
It wasn't too bad. I went to DC to sit down with them to go over things, but you have to follow the rules, and that's part of the deal, and that's fine, so that you don't inadvertently release classified information. But I'm more aware of what they did than the reader will be. I think the stories are told in such a way that, the average reader is not going to notice or realize that the classified information was taken out or glossed over somehow. So I got it approved by the CIA, so it's good to go.
So there wasn't a chapter in there about like aliens and stuff that they had to get through.
They don't care if you write lies,
Oh, they don't.
I could be lying in the entire book and they wouldn't care about that. They just don't want me to release classified information.
And like means and methods, I guess.
Sources and methods, exactly. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense.
I wouldn't do anyway, but it's good to have them check it just to be.
The book's awesome. I loved it. Really good.
HKRoy.com is the website.
Check it out. That Agent Orange thing, the KGB file.
There's also a soundtrack playlist that goes along with the book, which will make more sense once you read it. And some photographs on the website that were not included in the book due to space limitations. So,
you sent me the picture. I remember when we first connected, you sent me them. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
HK, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for serving the United States, man. Thanks for being you.
No, thank you. Good luck.
I appreciate coming on, man. Seriously, it means a lot.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
I'll probably put this out by tonight or tomorrow.
Great. Yeah, send me the link if you can when you got it up.
For sure, will do.
Take care.
HK, I appreciate it, man.
Okay. Hey, one more thing. book called Charlie Wilson's War. I highly recommend. I'm reading it now. It's fantastic. The movie was great, but the book's even better. There's a lot of Greeks in the CIA. There's something called the Greek Mafia.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Some were Greek, some are not even Greek. Some of my colleagues in the Balkans were part of the Greek Mafia because they served in Greece, but they weren't Greek. But because everybody loved Greece. So anyway, read Charlie Wilson's War.
I love that guy, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who he plays. Like that's a Greek dude, like straight up.
He's like the heart of this book too. So you got to
great.
read the book. Yeah. Gus.
Yeah, that movie's awesome. That movie's really good.
And the book is even better, believe it or not.
I believe it. Yeah, I've read books that are far better than the movies.
Yeah. Check it out.
HK, I appreciate it. Thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, bye.
All right.